set the filters up to where they're not cutting each other out, and then it gives you, you know, that super low end sub bass that goes right along with it. But there's that. And then so on my sub bass now, I've got my filter set right there. You know, the EQ doesn't really matter too much on this one. I just tweaked it a little bit, but I just used it more for the gain. I gained it up, you know, 3. But the big one on this kick, or on the sub one, was getting the sound wave, you know, adjusted just how I needed it. I'll hurry and find what this one sounded like originally, because it was just a big old sub bass. There you are. Right here is what it sounded like at first. You know, just way too much. But, you know, go in and tweak it, and then I got it right there. So that all comes in right here. You know, but I made sure that I got the actual sound wave going right where I needed it to. That way, you know, it didn't click or anything, and it just blends in really well. And that's just going to be, you know, playing it by ear. But the attack is 0, and then I put the hold way down to 20%, so it's not going through the whole sample. It's only doing 20% of it before it starts decaying off, and the decay is, you know, right around 50%. So it still, you know, decays at the same speed that my other 2 kicks do. So that way, when you put them all together, you've got this super nice, you know, really good sounding kick that's just going to tear through everything and sound just so good. So there's how I did. There's how I layered my kicks, and you know, that makes it a really nice heavy kick. So you got one that's a little bit high end, you know, a little clicky, your mid one that gets your, you know, bass drum sound, and then the sub that's just puts the body into it. And there's your kick. Now the big one is my snare that I'm going to talk about. This little devil right here. And the secret on the snare, to get a snare that sounds really punchy, the samples I actually started with were just these 2 right here, you know, and then I just tweaked those quite a bit and ended up coming up with this right here. I just went and resampled it there after I adjusted it. I got rid of the one, so I don't really know what I did exactly. So there it is, my EQ on here. I put in a lot more high end than it had, and you know, mid-range stuff took the low end down a little bit, because you don't really need too much low end on your snare, because your kick's doing that for you. But without the EQ, see, it's way more low end. So I got that just to kind of, you know, brighten it up, give it some more of that sizzle. And then I went in on my guitar rig and added the effects. Right here, you know, I got some transient master, so I had some nice, you know, punchy attack, and you know, the sustain doesn't go on too long on it either. And then I got an EQ and just, you know, play it by ear and sit there and, you know, kind of boost around with stuff just to see how you like it, honestly. And then I've got the whole limiter thing going on right up here in guitar rig this time. So there's that. But then it's, you know, it sounds really good, but if you want your kick or your snare to sound, you know, super good and fat like you hear on the dubstep tracks, the important part is this right here. You put a tom with it, this guy, you know, and it gives it that so much more body than it had before. So when you put them together, you know, it really brings your snare out a lot more. And the trick with my tom, what I did is I went in and I wanted it to be hitting, you know, right around 150 or 200 hertz. So I got this freakoscope, which just analyzes, you know, my sound wave for me, and I started messing with it, and just, you know, so I can look at it and see I'm 187 hertz on my tom. So that's right where I wanted to be, you know, because it lines up with my snare really well right there. So, you know, that's, you can, if you have some sort of, I think Fruity Loops that comes with a wave analyzer like that, you can be able to look at it and whatever. Because where's my original tom? I did a lot of work on that tom right there just to get it to sound the right way that I wanted it to. I have a lot of drums. Here it is. See, yeah, so I went from this to this. big difference again. And I just messed with the tuning of it to get it to the right frequency that I wanted. Ended up boosting it up 4, and then made it so it didn't drag on nearly as long with the hold and decay on it. So it's only going 1/3 of the length that it usually does. And then EQ'd it a bit, brought out some low and mid, got rid of the super high stuff, just to get it right where I want it. I don't think I did anything else on there. Yeah, so there's my tom, and here's my snare. And when you look at them both on an analyzer, like so, here's my snare by itself, hitting right around, right between 150 and 200 hertz, and then my tom is going right there. So when I put them together and I take a look at it, boom, it's still, peaking right where I want it to when you combine them, and it just looks really nice and smooth. And that is where I got my snare, and boom, just like that, it was done. And then I already sampled again right here. I sampled it with a hi-hat and then my snare, so I can hit some note repeat and just go crazy with them. I just tear it up like that all day. But so there that is, and that's really all the important stuff that I wanted to cover. I do have my hi-hats and stuff that I do because if you look at this, there's a lot going on during when this is playing, but a lot of it you can't really hear very much, but it just fills up that empty space, and it really does bring your drums out. So when you listen to it, you can't really hear all these hi-hats and stuff that are going on, but they're definitely there. Let me hurry. I'll go to this. Oh no, I always leave with that. Turn off all my hi-hats real fast. I use a lot of hi-hats, and then I'll add some shakers and some hi-hats and stuff, and that's just going to be whatever sound you want to go for. So there it is without. And then the first thing I added was this hi-hat right here. I got some reverb on it, so it gives it kind of a nice natural, loose fill. I just went, 8th notes here and then 16th, and just mess with the velocity so it's not, constantly hitting the same thing, and gives it, some naturality to it right there. And then, but stuff like this, like my ride cymbal, when you listen to it, it's a lot quieter than the other one was. This one too, you can't really, when the song's playing, you can't really hear those really too much, but you can tell when they're not there. So if your drums are sounding kind of empty or whatever, just get something like that and let it go some 8th notes or 16th notes, and just turn it way down, and it'll really just bring it out. And then I got my crash going, and I use this hi-hat right here is just doing the exact same thing as the other one is, but it just has a lot more hi-hat to it. So when you put them together, it adds that little, nice sizzly sounding high-end stuff with it. But see, when I turn that shaker on now, you can't really even hear it through the other two, but that's fine. Right. So here's all my hi-hats that are going right here. And then I got my drums. Just like that. I got some snares doing some cool stuff again. But that's how I do my drums, and that, I hope that helped. It's probably a long video, but hopefully you got some tips and pointers from doing it. So yeah.